All right, we're recording now. Everything looks like the universe didn't end because I hit that button.
No, I think we're good. I have a mandolin growing out of my head.
Do you want to play us something?
It's really out of tune, I think. Yeah, it's really out of tune.
I appreciated that anyway.
Anyways,
All right, so yeah, I guess let's just kind of jump right into it. We don't, or maybe you do. I don't really have any. Well, we kind of, let's back it up a little bit. So we started this recording right now because we were texting for the past couple days, and I sent you that Abraham Hicks video last night purely on impulse. I thought it was too late to send it to you, but something just told me like send this guy this video right now. I'm like, no, it's fucking 10 o'clock. I'm not gonna do it. But I just kind of, I wouldn't sleep comfortably unless I sent that video to you. It was kind of weird, so I had to send it to you. And you sent me this couple of long texts, which I really appreciate. I love to read a long text from a good friend about how it was really impactful and significant to you. So I guess let's just start from there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah. Yeah, so the Abraham Hicks video, I think, was touching on something that in your last video you posted. There was that part you're reading about suffering. I guess there's a lot of suffering was in a lot of the videos, but there's one part where it was like, by accepting the suffering, you alleviate the suffering. And I kept thinking about this weird relationship where it's like suffering isn't necessarily the problem, but then it's like we want to alleviate the suffering.
Yeah.
And I felt like that Abraham Hicks video kind of talked to it a little bit, which was really interesting, and also comes up a lot in biblical stuff too, particularly like the story of Job and stuff, where it's like there's almost always like a darkness to a lightness. There's always like suffering attached to lightness, and it's like but it was really interesting with Abraham Hicks stuff because that's so focused on getting what you desire, almost like that's the language that Esther Hicks uses or Abraham uses when channeled through Esther. And it's always like, what do you desire? And then you move towards that thing. And a lot of times what we desire is like, I desire that because I'm not going to have any more suffering. But it's like, there's going to be suffering the whole time. It seems like there's this weird kind of paradoxical relationship, you know, between like suffering and I don't want suffering anymore. And
Yeah.
I thought that I really wanted to ask you about that because I know you've thought about this a lot, and I'm just curious. And I don't know if I adequately described. Okay, I'll say a little bit more about the video too, the Abraham Hicks video. So basically, she said, what you desire takes a while to come, but once you start imagining it, or you start, basically you planted a seed. And she was like, a gardener and a farmer doesn't stamp out the seed before it's come up. Or the other thing she said was, a gardener and a farmer doesn't suffer because the seed hasn't arisen yet. And what they didn't say was that the gardener doesn't suffer. They just said the gardener doesn't suffer because the seed hasn't arisen yet. I think oftentimes we suffer because we don't have what we want. And we associate our suffering with not getting what we want. But it's actually that maybe the suffering is just some part of existence, like it's just here. And then I tied that, I was thinking in my text, I was thinking, you know, this is very similar to in Isaiah 45, which is the passage you and I have talked about before a lot. But this idea of like kind of forcing God to give you what you want versus like just falling into the hands of God or dropping back in the hands of God and allowing it to happen, which is like acceptance and allowance is this thing that the Zen teaching was talking about so much. It's like you just let go. You're just like, okay, I'm going to be cool. Like, I'm going to be good. I'm just going to like breathe through it. And then the suffering is alleviated miraculously in almost all cases. It's like with meditation. It's like all I need is my breath and suffering goes away. So in Isaiah 45, there was this passage that's like, who are you to say to God, why did you make me this way? Or why does can the clay pot say to the potter, why did you make me this way? And it was really interesting because in that video, I don't remember the exact wording she said, but she said like, our hands, like our lives are like our divine hands dipping down into the clay of 3D reality. It was something along those lines. I was like, God, that's such an incredible phrase. Anyways, okay, I talked a lot.
I guess I have a lot to say about the hand of God stuff in particular, because that day before I saw that clip later at night, I had a very intense and interesting meditative experience, and a lot was communicated to me in it. But the primary theme was the image of the eye of Christ. I don't know why I'm putting my little eye here, but I have that sticker. You have the hat. I really love that eye with the 7 eyelashes. It has
Oh
a
yeah.
strong representation for me, and I see it a lot. I don't consider it something that I drew or created. It's kind of just something that
Wait,
Duncan
hold
Chelsea
on.
used this term once. Oh, what?
Can I stop you and get the hat? I could like.
Yeah, that wasn't my intent, but I just wanted to bring the image up, and I don't have another way to
Okay,
show it.
I'll get it when you're done talking.
Yeah, I mean, you can go get it, but just what I wanted to say about it was that eye symbol in particular appears to me a lot and in a lot of different ways. And just during this meditative experience, I was seeing what I didn't realize while I was in it, but when I came out after, it was like a lot of these eyes in like this spinning DNA strand kind of way. And I realized what I was seeing was kind of how angels are described, and I don't know what part of the Bible, but they appear to somebody. I could be a little better with my biblical knowledge, but he describes them as gyroscopic, like wheels within wheels that are covered in eyes. And I had like a very intensely, like holographic light meditative experience where like that was kind of happening. I might play that. I have something I might want to share with you after. I don't really want to share it here, but I kind of recorded a little bit about that experience, and the kind of information I got, which resonated extremely with the Isaiah quote you sent me, but in a little bit of a different way, is that, or not really even, is we are the eyes of God, or we are the eye of God. And our job is just to see something and let God work on it. And the hands, or the hands of God, this was specifically the word that came to me in the meditation, the hand of God is something which we do not consciously have access to, but is that which does the work that the eye has seen and requested. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
I kept thinking about the idea that well, one thing I thought about was the body of Christ is like a phrase used in the New Testament, and like that everybody has different parts in the body of Christ. And I was thinking about how collectively, there's like ideas that we may all be like, we're all one, but we're all kind of God, and that each of us are kind of different people are forming our reality with their manifestations, basically, or with their imaginings and their kind of plays and scripts that they're working out. And so it is like this body is moving as one thing, and but we all have the consciousness of like where we want to go. But our actions, it's like this idea of like the dirt and the lightness, or the root and the flower, where it's like 3D reality is like the root kind of in this image, and it's like everybody's kind of creations are like the hands working out your story and their story all at once. Like, I don't know. That was my only thoughts about it.
I don't know how to communicate all this information, because I got a lot of downloads, I guess you'd call them, in the past few days, and so much of them are matching what you're talking about. And in general, I guess just to say about that, we're kind of all getting access to the same information at the same time, spiritually and mentally, in kind of like a collective way. And it's kind of your choice how you interact with that information, whether you accept it, whether you deny it, whether you want to work with it. And that's kind of a weird notion for some people to accept. But like, when I have these amazing synchronicities where it's like, I can't even find the thread because my experience is just throwing everything of a like vibration, I guess is the word, or like frequency at me, where it's like, I can't linearly tell you, oh no, it was this that led to this, that led to this. It's just like, my experience is now full of eyes and hands and clay pots, and it's like it's weird, but it's how the universe works. And something you just said about other people molding your hands or other people's hands molding your clay is something I got in a little bit of a different language, but it's something that's happening right now. I know for me, which means it's probably happening for many of us, which is kind of why I introduced it with all that. But the idea that other people are molding us is actually something that we want to be moving away from, because it's the idea that other people shape our experience, and they can if you allow them to. But the teaching that I've been receiving right now is that we are each our own sun, in the sense that we each have our own heart space that kind of attracts things to our experience and puts them in our orbit. And if we allow other people, or if we allow other ideas or opinions that we do not agree with to affect our own orbit, we kind of alter our own frequency in the heart space, and then we're going to attract or orbit things and experiences that match what somebody else has said instead of what wants to come through us or through our source, which contacts us through the heart space. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's really great that you said that, because it's actually cleared up some stuff for me when I heard you say that. I was like, that's it. Because my thing is always like, okay, so suffering's fine. So why is it a problem then that like I'm really stressed out at work right now? You know, like why is that an issue if I just need to experience suffering? And how do I balance that with all these other teachings that seem that I have a lot of synchronicities with too, and that seem very legit? Is like you should do what feels the best for you, and you should do
Feels
what
the
feels
best.
good. And and now I'm seeing, if you said that, I was like, okay, well, um, we're all attracting experiences to ourselves no matter what. Like that's the law of
Yeah.
attraction. So like,
Yes.
so um, you you have yeah, you don't necessarily want to just say like, oh, because I'm engaging with another's story or manifestation or reality creation, that I just need to stay with their reality creation. If it's not jiving with your own, it's okay to imagine yourself not being in that one.
Yeah.
You're still going to experience suffering as you move away from it, because that is part of the act of creation. Uh,
Yes.
but but yeah, something else she said. What was it? Oh, she said if you're going towards your desires, you might very much feel like you're not going towards your desires. But as long as you're still outputting the desire and still taking steps towards it, like you're still moving in that direction. It's when you say, "Oh, my desire is not working, so I just need to. This doesn't work," basically. And sorry, my dog's like on the couch with me. As long when you say like, "Yeah, my desire is not working," and then that's when you allow other manifestations, I would say, or other reality creations to push your reality creation around. Like you become a set or a piece in their little play, which is
Yes.
obviously
Yes. Yes.
being enacted upon by the people above them. Like I keep thinking about this work situation I had just yesterday, where it was like highly just toxic and money driven, and illuminating for me, honestly, about how kind of fucked the soul system is. But like, I was just like, because all this lady, she was just talking about contracts and vaguely hinting at me that she could fire me with the snap of her fingers, and just like, and I was trying to help her, and you know, it's the cost of a building. We're trying to get the cost of the building down, and it was just like, you're not helping me enough, but not directly saying it, because even in our system now, like in the corporate world, like you don't need to ever directly say something. People are so scared that they're going to infer that yes, when you say or imply anything, if you're my superior, like I have to jump and do that thing.
Yes. It's a hierarchy, and it is driven and sustained by fear.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. This is awesome. So like, yeah. So yeah, and it's an old hierarchy too. I was actually reading this article this morning on Medium by a growing culture, which is like a really cool Instagram, but it's basically about food sovereignty and peasant farmers around globally. And they were talking about how slavery didn't really end with the end of colonialism. It just got co-opted into neocolonialism and debt.
Yes. Yes.
And so that is those are actually the systems of fear, and it's so true. Like those are the systems of fear that are killing the planet right now. Quite frankly, I mean, that's
Killing
basically what's
everything.
happening. Yeah, it's killing everything. It's killing culture, life, joy. Yeah,
What it
and
kills, if I may speak on this,
spirit.
what it kills is the light. What it actually kills
Yeah.
is source energy wanting to move closer and closer towards its central point. Actually, I did this triangle because that was another thing that came to me in that meditation. This triangle is the triangle of creation, from the highest point or the central point or the God point, the highest awareness of the Christ. And then it filters downwards in density, and where it's less concentrated. Like this is a very high concentration of light at the top because it's the source. And then as it goes downwards and the creations get denser and denser and denser, this would be like, let's say, the most hard stuff, Earth, like at the bottom of the pyramid. And the top is the highest concentration of divine frequency. And we're somewhere in the middle as beings who are kind of elevating and elevating. And so we have a divine pyramid of truth. They use the word spiritual, my guides, use the word spiritual hierarchy. And I had resistance when they said that. I have this recording I want to send to you. I'm not going to play it here, but
Okay.
I had a lot of resistance when they use the word hierarchy, and they say that's because you have a social and intellectual connotation with what that word means and how you've been trained to adhere to it. But they say simply a hierarchy is just the way information or light filters downward in the creation. And you can understand that there are some things that are causative and there are some things that are representative of the cause. That is what you have in natural hierarchy. They say this is not intellectual, this is not an idea, no one came up with this. The ground is hard, the water is wet, the sun is hot, there is spiritual hierarchy. These are things that just exist. And then the fear hierarchy, or the one that we've all been adhering to and are now dismantling, inverted that pyramid to make it so that one person or one entity or one idea is the truth, and that every body, which instead of using their own source light to go upwards, is contributing their light and abnegating their light, or abnegating their self and abnegating their choice to use their light, which would seek to go upwards in themselves and in their own heart space, to fuel and go upwards and filter themselves into the light of one entity or one idea, instead of everybody filtering their own light upwards and creating what they want to create.
Yeah, it's basic. What it sounds like is, and this is consistent with what I've been getting to, is that 3D reality. How do I say this? That your moment-to-moment existence is the source, and
Yes.
then everything outside of that existence is a projection. And so that's where the hierarchy is. So that's where the start of the hierarchy, like you said, warmth, sunlight, water, rocks, stuff like that. And I'm kind of like inferring this a little bit. So like, if I'm getting it wrong, let me know. But like, basically that plane of existence, like 3D reality, like I guess keep thinking, I don't necessarily want to use that term, but I guess I will. But like actual world around us, like my breath right now and my voice right now that's doing the
You
talking.
could use the word form instead of
Form,
3D or
yeah.
anything. The world of form, the world of manifestations.
Yeah, the world of form. And I think, which this is critical too, I think includes the natural world and all the creatures like the grass, the trees, all those creatures around
everything.
us.
If I may interrupt you for a second, I'm sorry. The world of form is everything that exists, or we can say that exists, everything that's here, the trees, the people, anything.
And so that's like the top of the hierarchy, like you're saying. And then as you come down.
Can I correct you?
Yeah.
The top of the hierarchy is not the world of form. The world of form is a reflection of what is at the top of the hierarchy. And if I can hierarchically order the three things, I have a blend of a lot. I mean, I guess that's what a person is a blend of all the ideas that they've heard and interpreted. But some of what I'm going to say is from the law of one. They identify every entity as a mind, body, spirit complex. And so I'll use the spiritual hierarchy as I've come to understand it this way, is that spirit is the highest, mind is below that, and then body is below that. And each of these things filter upwards. So spirit is causative, mind is a little bit less causative, but still interactive, and body is the least causative and is a representation of the decisions made in the higher places.
Okay. So
to word that differently, the world of form is simply a reflection of what goes on at the top of the pyramid.
Yes. so what happens in our current world is almost like we take the world of form and take signs from that world of form, and we think the world of form is causative,
Right.
and the that's where the pyramid gets inverted, where it's like, and I see what you're
Yes.
saying now. And I guess what I meant by the world of form being the bottom, being the base or the top of the hierarchy, is that it's the most purest manifestation of our consciousness in this moment. So
Yes, it is the only thing I would say is that it is a reflection of your state of consciousness at this moment. It is not causative. It's just kind of, Duncan Trussell used this term, throwing paint on the invisible man. Your entire life is just atomic paint, or the atoms that are representative of what's going on vibrationally or above the hierarchy in mind and spirit. You're just looking at a hard, knockable, touchable version of the stuff that's going on elsewhere.
yeah. So if I were to, take that world of form and say, okay, because this is happening or that's happening or that's happening, I then need to act out in fear to protect myself, like by insurance and all these things, is how it gets inverted. And I don't want to. It's weird because we're in a weird space. So that's how. I guess that's what that's what you're saying too, is where the pyramid got inverted. It's basically we're looking at something that's like just a reflection of our mind state and saying, no, actually that's the causative experience.
Right. So it's a case of mistaken identity, you might say.
Right. And this is all difficult stuff to think about when you think about it, to say, when you think about it for even just a couple seconds, because it's like, wow, this could, even now I'm like, man, I could get in real trouble for saying, the world of insurance, like even that went through my mind as like, how crazy do you want to get with it? Because it's like, there's a lot of forces right now in our world who would say, obviously you have to have insurance. And it's really interesting too that like,
Can I ask
Abraham
you,
Hicks,
I don't mean to
yeah.
interrupt you, and I didn't even intend to do that, but I just have something to say. There are no insurance agents in this call or in either of our rooms, right?
Right.
So if the present moment is all that we have, and there are no insurance agents to tap us on the shoulder and tell us we've done something wrong, the only way that the insurance agents are here are in consciousness, and they can be, I don't want to say ignored, but superseded when you acknowledge who you truly are and the power that you truly have. But something like there, when you want to speak out against something like an insurance company or agency, or say that they're not being, whatever you wanted to say about it, because I don't really necessarily have an opinion on them, but just to use that as an example, I don't want to say that you're being fearful, but one's fear or one's idea that something might happen in regards to an insurance agent is kind of what introduces that into life and makes insurance agents actually real, which is could be a little bit hard to digest, but tell me how that's at with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely the case. I always think about these things because I think about like who is listening, or even myself too. Like it's like,
I know what you mean.
yeah, because it's like it seems very irresponsible. I don't mind using that term, in terms of like cultural values of the West, to say like, yeah, you're going to be fine no matter what.
Right. It seems irresponsible is the key word there.
Right. And it's like, but I think about that, and I think about that irresponsibility and the fear and the shame that comes with that term, and the kind of damage that has been done to us spiritually and psychically because of that kind of terminology. I don't know. I'm even like thinking about it now as I'm talking. uh, but it's not really, I don't know. So like in Abraham Hicks, in that talk that you sent me, she was talking about how you can't just jump right away to like the new world where it's like we don't need insurance. And well,
Right.
I don't want to say necessarily say that, but like uh,
I know what you're
you
getting
have
at.
to, yeah, like you have to make the change has to come slowly. And I think that's what we're collectively doing right now is we're all moving to a world where the planet can actually survive and us as a species can survive. And us, the movement there has to involve us all like processing fear. Like we have to
Yes.
walk through it. And so we got to kind of walk through the suffering of that fear. And so I guess that's in a way I'm not going to go, after this call, drop all my insurance policies. I'm thinking about right now, like somebody
No
hit
one's
our
telling
car.
you to.
Yeah. And like somebody hit our car the other night too. And, it's going to cost money to fix that. And we have car insurance. And, that's very, I'm grateful for that, and so I have to honor that too. And I guess maybe when I say insurance, I mean more of the idea that things aren't going to be all right. Like
Yeah.
that things aren't going to go well. So I need to protect myself. It's really weird in the field that I'm in. Almost everything is forward thinking like that. I imagine most people who work in modern America in some corporate form have to think forward think in a way of fear and lack in order to do their jobs.
What do you mean by
And
forward think in a way of fear and lack?
like I have to think, what's going to happen if I don't show this on this piece of paper that I'm producing?
So it's a threat, is essentially,
Yeah, I'm
or
making
the
a threat.
idea of a
Like I'm
threat.
making a threat to the person building the building. Really, I guess what I do. I guess people listen to my podcast, but they know that I'm an architect. So
Yeah.
um,
I'm not,
yeah.
I sense in you a little bit of like trepidatiousness. I'm just trying to walk through what you're saying. There's no judgment or anything. I'm just like,
Well, I think
what I
that
want to
like
do is tackle things in consciousness, and it looks a lot and sounds a lot different than what we're used to. And I don't want to offend anybody, but it's, I want to be a little less like shy about the language because I think I have something that a lot of people really need to hear right now.
okay.
Um, it's kind of like the way that you look at this situation with like, if you don't do this, I have the ability to do this. Like if you don't honor your contract to pay your car every month, there's a threat that you could be sued or this or that. Like, there's this idea that if you don't do what I say, I need to know that I'm going to be okay anyway. And so that's a way of not only controlling somebody else, but threat of violence as a way to enforce that control. And I'm not saying that you do this or that your engagement with this or with contracts or anything is in any way unhelpful or unspiritual or whatever, because we live in the world that we live in, but we have to also remember that we live in a world that is capable, not only capable, but is visually and obviously changing every single moment of every day. And that we are nodes on that network and that we can enforce the change that we want to see. So not that you shouldn't use contracts or have insurance or anything, but you're also a creative person. And if anybody hearing this, not you in particular, feels a call to make changes to these things or to run a business in a different kind of way that they're sure about, not that they're like, I don't know, this guy had held a podcast at it. Like if you really feel that you should be doing something differently, you have an opportunity to do that. And I'm going to shut up now.
No, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, and we have to watch our energy. I'm constantly thinking about that. Like, especially on something like this, like what energy am I projecting into something? And am I sitting in the source of my power or not?
Am I sitting in the source of my power or not? Yeah. Or even better, am I working in tandem with the infinite source that wants to help me achieve everything that I want?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of, I mean, I think it was in the Abraham Hicks thing I sent you, but we all have this idea that it's like, we can put desires out. I have a lot to say about even that, but just we'll work with that for now. Like we can have desires or output desires or in some way, shape, or form want our lives to be different. And then we think that that's a sin. We think that the very act of wanting something to be different is an absolutely abhorrent and impossible thing to ask. And we need to, get everything that we could possibly see into a stranglehold in order to affect this change. Because we have a basic idea of the divine or the creator of our God, that it's something that has a plan and sits on a throne. And every time you interject and say, hey, your plan didn't really include me in it as much as I would like, I'm suffering a lot, can we alter this plan a little bit? We have this idea that there's going to be just like a huge slap or a divine slap in the form of losing your job and becoming homeless or whatever. But it's like, we have this idea that we're not loved and that we really have to beg for everything that we want and need. But if you think about, the right at the ending of American Sunset, I really love this. The guy, the MK Ultra, where he's getting in front of the sun, and he's like, you're loved, or you found someone that really loves you, and they'll make a little extra effort just to stand up and block a little bit of light in your eyes for you. And we think that we're so small and insignificant, or that the divine is so all-knowing that if we say there's some light in our eyes, could you please block it, that we'll get this big angry dad, no, how dare you, I put the light there for a reason, and you get back in your seat. But it's like, no, we're so loved because not only we are the source and we are the God, but that we were created to be loved and to be loved and to be in love with everything around us. That if we say there's a source of light in my eyes, it's a little too intense, we won't even have to move our hands. The vines and trees will move around us to cover that light. But we don't, in this society at this moment, easily grab onto that concept or idea or fact or truth.
Yeah. There's two things that came to mind. First, Jesus says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains.
I love that. Yes, and it is ever true.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I was at a meeting this week, and I was thinking about, I had just been listening to your YouTube video, and I'm sitting there, it's a different meeting and then the one I was at last time, and this guy was talking about the number of apartments that they have. And so the number 44, my dad's barking. Is that coming through?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on a second. Come on.
We need the rocks back in place.
Yeah. I'm sorry for that. Oh man.
Oh no, it's no big deal.
Maybe you can edit it out. Yeah, so anyways, we went to this meeting, and this guy, he's talking about the number of apartments he has, and so the number 444 is like very significant for me. And he goes, yeah, we have 444 units here. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I was thinking as he was talking, like I was like, I'm projecting this guy like out of my mind. Like I've created this guy. And as he's talking, like I need to hear this stuff. And as I'm thinking that, he goes, yeah, we have 444 apartments here. And I was like, holy fuck. Like I was like, it's just this kind of like everything. It's like everything in your reality. Like when you do everything, it's all coming from your visualization or imagination of what you're seeing, your perception of what you're seeing. And
it's all coming from your frequency.
Yeah. Yes, the frequency of our energy, basically, which is behind all of our, yeah, I say perception, but it's like our five senses, which is like our touch, our bodies. Our frequency is creating our bodies, and then our frequency is creating the world around us, because we're all connected frequency-wise. On the atomic level. Like it's all frequency. Like that's what a particle is. It's a frequency. It's a wave. It's a wave.
It's a frequency being informed by a frequency.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably a pure, yeah, way to describe it. Because when we
No,
do,
what you
yeah,
said was fine. I love the it's turtles all the way down thing because it's so true. Like, the solar system has a sun and it has planets that orbit it, and an atom has a nucleus and it has electrons that orbit it. And then if we could see further and further down, it's probably the same thing all the way up and down. So it's like matter or whatever we call it, the stuff made of atoms is vibration and it is vibrating. And at the same time, it is informed by the higher part of the hierarchy, which is vibration, and it's ever up. It's vibration all the way down.
yeah. And I think that's kind of the basis of like all these teachings.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of like you were saying, like, or we were saying, and Abraham Hicks was saying, that a lot of people kind of abandon it because it's like, oh, this is a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
It's not, the suffering's not going away because our conditioning makes us think that suffering is a problem, or that, or even maybe it's our conditioning teaches us to resist suffering. That's probably more accurate, because when we think it's a problem, we resist it instead of accepting it.
Well, I don't know if it can be tied back to a particular teaching because humans in general just very obviously don't like to suffer. So we've created all kinds of games and distortions in order to eliminate it. But as the Buddha teaches, it is the first fundamental truth of existence is that to exist is to suffer. And his remedy for that is basically to realize that you don't exist. To put that another way, because I never understood that when I heard it and I didn't like it and it made me mad and it just seemed like a provocative, mystical thing to say. The thing about mistaken identity that I said before, like we think that the world of form or the world of manifestations is the causative place. It's the same kind of thing with suffering, where if in the higher part of the pyramid, like if spirit or if mind, or even to bring it down to you if you don't want to be so grand about it, if your spirit or your mind, because again, as above, so below, small vibration, big vibration, your spirit and your mind are in an encounter with something that you don't particularly like because it was outpictured that way, you have the ability to kind of morph it through vibration, and that vibration will change it. But the catch here is that it's not how you wrote it. And while the change is happening, because the change that was selected in the higher part of the hierarchy will outpicture itself. Okay, I want to say something, but I don't know how to articulate the language. But it's basically, you are not a body. You are, in some ways, barely even an individual entity. And that's a scary thing to hear. But when you have an idea or a thought, the first thing I would say is that it is not your idea or a thought. It is an idea or a thought that was presented to you by your source. And the second thing that I would say is that when these ideas are agreed to, or when who you are as the choice maker or as an energy system agrees with what has been presented to you, it automatically will begin to manifest in form, but it doesn't follow the rules of the small self, as Paul Selig would say, or to put it as the language we've been using in this video, it doesn't follow the rules of the world of form. So you, as your person in form and as your personality would write out, I want the situation to go this way, is because you know how the world of form works. But the world of form is not informing your decision. And you have a lot more power than you think, because you think I make a decision or spirit makes a decision, and I need to do it. But in fact, you are everything, you are all things, you are mind, and that is a causative thing. So that when somebody's mouth that is not your mouth says 444, you realize you in some ways have done that, but Ben didn't do it. Source did it through Ben and then through that mouth. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to keep talking on that, so I want to hear your, I'll pass the buck to you.
No, I keep coming back to the thing that like we're kind of just all like in an interconnected web. And so
Yeah.
it's like, but it's like the reason why I don't see 444 all the time, or why it's some random ass number like 444 that I probably won't figure out till I'm maybe dead or something. But like,
No, it's,
yeah, it's like, is that it's everything's got to, all of your desire and whatever you're putting out, it's got to like basically ripple out through this energy matrix. And so that's why when somebody else says it, it's just like this like little like bing or something. It's like the little sign, and there's all these signs because we're all doing this collectively together. And I think maybe like you said, like I'm curious to your thoughts on this. So, because you mentioned this a couple times, how far can you push it? I know that some people push it a lot farther than others, as far as just relying on everything, relying on the universe, as opposed to relying on the world of form. And I would say that yes, I agree that we all are outputting it right now. So technically, I'm not even relying on the world of form at all. I'm just relying on my misconstruction that I need to rely on the world of form. But I'm curious from you, like, how far have you pushed it, or what does that what happens when you do push it, and like, yeah.
Okay. I will say about that stuff like this happens all the time, only you don't know it because you choose to take the perspective of suffering. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you a lot of examples, but the first one that came to my mind when I said that is the example of my friend who very recently lost his job. He was very, 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 very distraught about it. And as I was talking to him about it, I was able to extract from him that he, not 2 days before that, had expressed to one of his friends that he really didn't like the job and wanted to leave it. So what had happened was he has a construction job and there was some kind of pipe that he didn't install correctly because it's not something he usually does. And so he was blamed for it. And it was kind of a weird thing because, like, a lot of circumstances that he didn't perceive as someone who'd been in the job for a while to typically happen. And I didn't tell him this because I don't know if he really engages with this kind of thought, but it's like, you have to realize at a certain point that you're the one doing that, in the same way as when you need a house or a car or more money. Things will kind of present themselves to you in a way. Only we have a cultural resistance to the idea that good things can happen, only the bad things. But it's equal, and there's no discernment through pure undifferentiated energy. So you can say, I don't like my job, I want to leave it, or you can say, I want a writing job, and those two things have equal weight and will manifest with equal ease. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Or I don't know what, but I feel like I left a part of it unanswered. So please help me refine
Well,
it.
that's right, because I paused. Yeah. Well, I was
Well,
wondering,
also just
like,
I feel it.
like when you okay, yeah, I get that. So positive, what, like, so when you go with the positive route, like, what is that in your experience outputted for you? Like, where you're like, yes, I have the job I want. I have the like I have the independence I want. I have the
Oh, okay.
freedom I was looking for. I have
How
all
far you
that.
push it,
Like,
right? I forgot because I didn't really
yeah,
answer the question. I just kind of prefaced it and then forgot about the question. Okay, so how far, I guess how far I personally pushed it, I can tell a personal story if that interests you or anybody.
I'd be curious.
I don't know if I mentioned this to you already. I probably did on the podcast, but I guess I talk about it a lot, so I forget who. So I'll just briefly introduce it with the fact that a couple years ago, it being 2022, so almost 2 years ago, I made the choice to attend an event called Space Camp with a lot of really cool, high vibrational spiritual people. And I had a lot of beyond amazing encounters that I literally thought were impossible to have in my reality. I met people I didn't think could possibly exist in form. I encountered energies in the form of people and in the form of disembodied energies that turned my idea of reality on its head. And I made a very impulsive and foolish decision after leaving that place to not return home. I was living with my parents at the time. And didn't really have a job or anything. I just got back in my car, and this was in North Carolina. I drove to California across the interstate with no plan whatsoever. I was just like, my life sucks. I was 22, I guess, going on 23 when I attended the event. I'd been miserable for about every single one of those years consecutively, and it just was increasing and increasing. And this event was kind of the pivot point that was like, well, you don't have to do that all the time. There's just because you haven't been around people you like or haven't seen things you like doesn't mean they're not out there. You just haven't been doing it. So I just had a crazy explosive moment and just drove to California, fucking across the state with no plan, not a lot of money, and it was quickly dwindling. And I was not thinking at all. That's probably obvious, but I really wasn't thinking. It was pure feeling. And there was, to say that there was suffering on the trip was an understatement. Because every night was spent in a hotel room, either crying or so filled with information, not even information, just so assaulted by the gravity of what was happening and understanding why I was making the choices I was making, but knowing it was the only thing to do, was kind of just carrying me forward in a way I didn't get. But by all rights, I should have been homeless in Los Angeles within a week, because I didn't tell anybody about where I was going. Didn't answer my parents or any of my friends' calls when they called about where I had been for a week, I guess, because I'd been at the event for a few days and then drove off, and then didn't tell anybody where I was going or anything. So I guess this is getting a little emotional for me now, but technically or logistically or world of form speaking, I didn't check any of the boxes that a responsible individual would check to be alive. And I was rapidly approaching a really bad situation, but I was so, I don't know if the word is lost in the spirit, but that's not anything that's coming to me. I was just so lost in consciousness that I was just like, this is what's happening. This is okay. At the same time, while the California fires were going on, I arrived in Los Angeles and couldn't see the sky or the sun, and didn't understand. It was just it seemed like a literal manifestation of hell. It's because I just kind of left everything behind that I knew, had no plan for the future. And I had this one place I've always wanted to go my entire life, California. And I got there and the sky was literally on fire. So I had nothing, literally nothing, but I just kept the vibration, I guess, because it wasn't even in my thoughts, because my thoughts were telling me all of that. But my vibration was different, and it was saying, you're doing well, you're doing great, just, you're good. And then a couple of things happened, which I wouldn't have planned, because you can't plan for the kinds of things I'm about to say, which is one of my, well, I'll say the more important thing first is that the host of Space Camp called me, or I called her, arranged a call with her, because she was very interested in everybody's development at Space Camp, because she kind of knew, you know, it was a time when everyone was kind of really unhappy with the world, and it was kind of a needed thing. So she was really interested in everybody's growth and development and how Space Camp impacted them. So she gave out her phone number to everybody. She's like, call me, I'd love to speak with you. So I talked to her and I told her what was going on. I kept, to my memory, a pretty level voice and like composure. So I was like, yeah, you know, I'm out in California now, living my dream like I told you I wanted to live, because I talked to her about it a little bit, and she encouraged it. Well, she encouraged, she didn't say do that. She just said do whatever your heart is telling you versus whatever your fear is telling you, essentially. And I guess to make a pretty long story that I was trying to keep short, she'd offered me to co-live with her right after that. And I wasn't even thinking about having a place to live. I was literally just swimming in an ocean of consciousness and confusion. And looking back on it, I should have been very concerned about having a place to live and an income and stuff, but I just wasn't. Yeah. And that was kind of what I would interpret taking things very far out without intention, is because I was met divinely by what I needed without even asking for it. And I think that's a very significant thing that I'm still processing. And ever since then, living situations have been something that I needed to manifest, and they tend to come up pretty easily. Like, even I'm living in a new place now that I've been in for a month, and the previous place that I was in was a pretty disastrous situation for a lot of reasons, and I needed a way out. And when it came time to find a place, and I had no real plans or not a lot of money to do that comfortably, someone came out of nowhere and was just like, yeah, I got this room and he's not going to make you sign a contract. And, you know, the rent is something that I was able to afford. And it just kind of happens, you know, that one was more intentional, but the first one wasn't. But I'm noticing the pattern of uh, need and need met are kind of two sides of a pole that are somewhat illusory, and that the suffering arises from the idea that a need could possibly not be met. I guess Ben's talking to someone. So I'll just take this interaction, or I'll take this opportunity to speak a little bit more on that by saying, since we've been talking about Abraham Hicks so much, Abraham has kind of a manifestation like checklist or amount of steps that they teach. And step one is recognizing contrast, which is something that you need or something that you perceive to be out of alignment. Step two is knowing that source is already working on it and that all of the conspiring forces are actually wanting to help you, and that that's not even a step you have to do anything about. So step one is noticing something you want different. Step two is acknowledging that the source that is you is conspiring to help you get that thing, or to help that thing come into alignment with its highest vibration. And then step three is to receive that thing, which is in another way to say align your vibration with the thing that you have requested, or to assume that which is not yet manifested to be manifested and live as that. And I think that's kind of the pattern that I've experientially been picking up on. I guess Ben's not done yet, so I don't want any dead air, so I'm going to keep running. Dead air doesn't matter because I can cut this and we're not live. But to anybody that doesn't, I guess, trust enough that like there are forces that might meet you, I would say just test it in little ways. There's no little or big ultimately. It's up to you and what you as a personal individuated unit of consciousness would consider magnitude to be. So just test it in tiny little ways. Like if you drink a coffee every morning or you drink tea every morning or something, just try to not get the coffee in the way that you usually get it. Like don't make it at home or don't buy it from Starbucks, and just go about your day without the coffee and see how coffee comes to you, or something, little thing like that, whatever you're intuitively hitting. I think Ben's back.
Hey, sorry about that. My
Yeah,
dad
no
came
worries.
in the house, dropping
Yeah.
my son off. Yeah, I caught the last end of your story. It is really amazing that you just jumped into that. And pretty incredible to see what happens, you know? Yeah. I feel like my parents always walk in at like the weirdest moments.
You're not going to want them to hear probably some of this stuff, so we can start wrapping it up if you want.
No, he actually left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't know he was going to come in. They usually don't
Yeah.
come in. Yeah. But wow, that's crazy that he just walked in.
Why do you think that is?
Like
today
that,
of all days.
well, it's weird. So like, I'll just give you a backstory. Like I am borrowing, our lawnmower broke, the part of it broke. So I'm borrowing his. And so I was going to mow the lawn this morning, but because of our technical difficulties we had, like it took me longer to start recording. So I was going to record this morning earlier before because my son stays at their house every Friday night. And my parents, by the way, like are very conservative, and so they're not really on board with any of this at all.
Yeah.
And so so yeah, they don't know about a lot of it too. So yeah, maybe it's like I don't know, I feel like it's always like our triggers always show up when it's like we're moving towards something.
Yes.
And it's like, here you go. Are you ready to show? Can you do this or not?
Yeah. Because
I'm like wearing, yeah.
Oh no, you go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say about that.
I'm also wearing our friend Chris' shirt, Radical Harmony, which I don't think my dad's ever seen. But it's like this super cool, like mind artwork on it, and uh anyways, that's I don't know, maybe I need to like my brother and I have this discussion a lot about how much we open up with our parents or not, and how much they can take or hear or not. And it's also too, I remember as you were talking, I was like, I hope my phone doesn't fall down
Yeah.
as Ulrich's talking. And then like something much worse happened as my dad walked in and wanted to talk to me about the lawnmower when I was getting to mow the lawn, and that I don't let the lawnmower sit out the storm because he doesn't want it to get wet, like in rain. And anyways, it's like this huge thing, and I was like, oh man, that's amazing. This is all happening right now. So anyways, I'm like, sorry, I missed the back end of that. That's how it
No,
goes though, right?
that is how it goes, and that's what I might call a catalyst, or what I guess Love One Ra calls a catalyst, which is an opportunity for growth in the form of, he didn't use this term, but I've used this term, in the form of friction, in the form of something is presented to you that is kind of I guess another word is trigger, but I like the image of friction because electricity and magnetism is something that comes to me a lot. So I guess friction is kind of a result of electrical activity in some way, shape, or form. But that kind of the friction that is introduced to you by way of catalyst when you say, I need whatever it is that, I'm not going to name what you need through your interaction with your father, but if there's a need for something to happen and there's a lot of energy in a, or not even if there's a lot of energy, but especially when there's a lot of energy in a particular moment, a lot of the stuff, what Abraham would say, in your vortex, but what I would just kind of say, that is a part of your vibration waiting to be manifested, which is the same thing. But will start to manifest, and you kind of have the opportunity to interact with that catalyst and clear that lesson if it is a lesson.
Yeah. If it is a lesson is always the thing.
I mean, in one way or another, it's always a lesson. The question is just kind of how you're going to integrate it, because lesson sounds hard, but sometimes it's just like, oh, there's always water when I'm thirsty somehow. That could be the lesson.
Right.
Which is a significant lesson to learn, actually. It's metaphorical for probably exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, it makes you think about the rice cake thing you're talking about. And this rice cake, and you see the image of the rice cake, and it's really just an image of the rice cake. It's not like the actual thing, even though we think it is. I may be like totally messing up my memory of what I heard.
No, you're right.
That video once, but yeah.
That's that in particular is something that I really like. The image of the painted rice cake not being able to satisfy hunger because it's just a painting. And satisfaction is not a part of a painting. Satisfaction is a part of your awareness and your being. So you can't let your awareness and your being, or not let your awareness and your being can physically not be altered or impacted by a painting. Or I shouldn't say that, you know what I mean, metaphorically, like you can be incredibly impacted and receive an amazing amount of inspiration from seeing a painting, but to take the metaphor as the manifest world being a painting of reality, the painting will not satisfy the dissatisfaction or wanting satisfaction. I feel the need to clarify that because I love art and am an artist myself. So I'm not going to say that paintings can't change the world, because they can and do.
Yeah, I was thinking about how I guess what I was thinking about, you mentioned water, I have a need for water or something like that. And I was thinking about like, wow, my needs are like, can I tell my parents about my my worldview, which is like, I don't know, my background is evangelical Christianity. I was raised evangelical, and that's a very, maybe others can relate to this, but it's like that kind of place can be very difficult, create a tremendous amount of fear and hurt and toxicity for people. And so it's kind of like, can I even engage with that thing where it's not like I'm like letting myself not have water. It's like I'm letting myself not talk to my dad about what I believe. Like, that I'm okay with drugs and stuff like that. Like that kind of thing. Um, but I was thinking like it's like the painting, you know, it's just an image.
Mm.
Um,
Yes, you have. I hate, I shouldn't say I hate. I'm noticing that I'm interrupting a lot, and it's because I feel like I have a lot that I want to
no,
communicate. So
it's great.
uh, thanks, but I'm not used to this because I usually I'm not in interaction with people who want to hear this kind of stuff. So when I talk to
Hmm.
you or someone like this specifically, just it all wants to rush out. But yeah,
I
what you're
enjoy
saying
being a
about.
catalyst for
Well, thank you. It's appreciated. And as guides that are channeled always say, like well, they don't always say, but I feel like the implication is usually that, or I think even in the law of one, they do say that learning and teaching are the same thing because they're two ends of a pole. And the teacher needs the
Mhm,
student and the student needs the teacher. Otherwise, nothing is happening. Everything is polarity, or
mhm.
everything is the illusion of polarity. It's really the same thing that you can't be a teacher without teaching somebody. You can't be a student without learning. So these two things inform each other. But back to what I was trying to get at before all that happens. Your dad walking in, not well, at this particular moment while this is happening, is kind of a manifestation of the idea that I will give myself the liberty to speak a little bit on what I'm reading in your energy system, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
I guess I'm not giving myself the liberty. I'm asking your permission. But what I was about to do is give myself the liberty before I ask. But what I read in your energy system right now is the idea that you kind of, there's you who is your son. You're always a son. But I don't know why I'm imagining it or visualizing it right here. There's a tugging behind you that's like trying to tap you on the shoulder, and it says that son's wrong. I know where the sun really is, and you're kind of being literally turned around. Like if the sun is in front of you or if the sun is your heart, there's someone poking you on the shoulder, making you look at a painting of the sun, let's say, or as a person, the person is pointing to their own chest and saying, "This is the sun." Does that make any sense to
Mhm.
you?
Yes.
And what happened was an articulation. I love the word articulation that Paul Selig introduced in one of his books. I listen to all of them all the time, but in one of his books, he says, everything is the divine in articulation. So what you have there is a thought form that you may not be the true sun, or that your own knowing or your own central sun might not be correct. And so there's this thought form which exists in the higher part of the pyramid that someone needs to tap you on the shoulder and show you where the sun is. And that was a manifestation which filtered downwards into density as a father, an articulation and form of somebody saying, as an authority figure, not saying, but vibrationally introducing the idea that I know where the sun is and you need to dim your light because I am the sun. And you can kind of see how that filters downward. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So what I said is a catalyst is because the catalyst is kind of the form of the divine and articulation, allowing you to see what's going on in your energy fields and catalyzing a response from you in the form of choice making. Do you
Right.
want to ask
Like,
anything about that?
no, I was just thinking, like, in the form of choice making, like, do I want to hop off this call and, like, like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not having a YouTube discussion with somebody you've never seen before. Because I was really actually concerned you'd come look at my phone, and I was like, and then it's going to be all these questions like, what were you doing? What were you doing with that? And then it's really weird too, because I'm like a middle-aged person, but yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. That really helps me look at that in a different light, think about that differently. When we were kids, we would always be like, we would have the radio tuned to like alternative rock stations and we could drive the car.
Yeah.
And then when we pulled into the driveway, we would change it to the Christian station.
Yes.
Just so they wouldn't know when they got in the car that we've been listening to the
Oh
alternative rock
yeah. Well, good on you.
station.
But that is a manifestation of kind of what I'm talking about. I love the image of the sun, and I guess every teacher or channel kind of has their own like language or lexicon that they build as they teach, like Abraham is the vortex or whatever. I'm feeling very called to speak about the sun in orbit. So you have your own sun, which is your heart space. And when you allow other people, not you, but anybody, when anybody allows somebody else or an idea or anything else to become their sun, you will acquiesce your authority and allow your sun, which is a source of light and incredible energy, which is the source of all energy. You allow that sun to become a planet instead. And you, instead of calling things to you orbit, you become something that is orbiting something else. And I find this imagery to be very significant because as above, so below. And if you really are a sun, which has an inconceivable amount of energy that it radiates for an inconceivable length of time, and even our sun is kind of a small one compared to what's out there. If you can really see your own heart and your own ideas and your own opinions as a sun, and you realize that the sun, maybe not the literal, I guess actually, yes, the literal sun in the sky too, has a choice whether it wants to radiate from its source or whether it wants to orbit something. That has a really big impact on the manifestation of the articulated divine in the form of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I can keep going by like forever, I guess, but I like a back and forth because I don't want to just.
Yeah.
I have an aversion, I guess, to appearing as like an authority figure, which is something I have to sort through, I guess.
You should just accept it, let it go.
Thanks for that. I actually I've needed to hear that.
I tend to go towards submission in most cases. So maybe this is the dynamic that's helping you out do that, something about it. But yeah, I don't know. I think about what does it mean to grab our light or take the light confidently?
It's not.
I don't know if people struggle with that, or is it even confidently?
They do. It's an incredible struggle, but I would change the phraseology from grabbing or claiming the light to receiving the light that really desperately wants to flow through you. And people struggle with that because they think that the light that wants to flow through them is wrong. And they want that the light that wants to flow through them is incorrect and will lead to disastrous results in their life. So someone else's light in the form or articulation of somebody else's opinions or structures or ideas or business or whatever it is, has to be more correct. And
I said confidence or
yeah, I got to start the recording again. But yeah, we're back. Slight technical difficulty, but we're resuming now.
Yeah, so you were saying something about confidently accepting your light, I think. Or you said
thank you for reminding me, because I totally lost whatever we were going to talk about. I was just going to start something else, but yeah. So I think your question was, you had a question about grabbing the light, or that people have trouble grabbing their own light to become the sun that they truly are, or rather to accept the facts or the truth, because I don't know about fact has maybe a weird connotation to it, but to accept the truth that the sun, you are the son of your own being, and that the infinite source that powers the actual sun that you can see in the sky, the amount of energy it takes to have that thing exist for the amount of time that it exists, actually exists within you, or I should say just exists as you everywhere and manifests in, as, and through you, through your heart space, because that is kind of the central locus of all things. And thank God for that, because it means that all of, actually this comes up on the tree of life, is that, I don't know if, have you seen the image of the tree of life? The 10 dots that look kind of like a weird energy matrix?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's a mystical teaching. It's called the Tree of Life. Look it up. It's from the listeners, look it up. I could send you a picture, Ben, of it's from a teaching called the Kabbalah, or the Kabbalistic mystical practice.
Is it the Kabbalah symbol? Like it's
probably like I don't know if the Kabbalah symbol is different. Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a triangle with a rectangle and a triangle on the bottom.
Yeah, you know I've seen it.
And it's got 10 different dots on it. Yeah, this is creation as a whole in the shape. Essentially, it's the 10 energy centers of creation and how they interact with each other. And all of them, and there's only one of these things that does it, all of them are filtered through Tifereth, which is representative of the heart space or infinite beauty and compassion. So nothing that is created exists without being filtered through beauty and compassion. And I forget exactly why I'm bringing that up, but it is the center of your being, which means that everything physically downward in the form of chakras. There are three above, three below, and the heart is the center that connects these two. The three below are the more dense, three above are the more high, which are outside of form. And the heart is known as the portal that kind of bridges these two things. So you allow the infinite source, and we say the infinite source works through and as your heart space, is because if there are three above and three below, or however many above and however many below, the number will always be equal, is because the heart is the center and it is radiating into all of these things. So the creation, as we say, is always creations of light or creations of love, because they are the same thing. The infinite source of light is simultaneously the source of love, because you are the light. And how could you send yourself into a dream or incarnation without loving yourself? Why would you do that?
Yeah. So there's a link there to confidence, like
Okay.
maybe confidence is a sign of power, or like there's like a in love necessarily. I mean, I guess love, you can love and power, but a lot of times love is
Yeah, sorry to not accurately touch on that, because I guess that was kind of the heart of what you were getting at. Confidence, in my experience, is a result of being in alignment and knowing that you are always safe no matter how you express. Because I had a lack of confidence in a lot of areas of my life, and I'm to this day still, but the ones that I'm putting in the past are kind of the areas of confidence of not really wholly speaking my truth regardless of who's in front of me. Because if I decide not to speak my truth, in my view, and as I'm being taught, I'm becoming a planet instead of a sun, which is in some ways a sin, not to scare anybody, but to use the word sin as Eckhart Tolle uses it, as to, well, as he references, its original intention was to be used as to miss the mark of truth rather than to be an affront against God. So I would say to allow yourself to become a sun, or allow yourself to become a planet orbiting around somebody else, is to sin, because you miss the mark of truth that is your own sonship. Literally, your own sonship as a son of the God, and your own sonship as the one with the actual sun. You understand?
yeah, I hear that. It makes me think about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So you've heard of the Beatitudes, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I love the Beatitudes.
So I was
And that's
wondering,
it.
yeah,
Take no thought for
it's real.
tomorrow, what you shall eat, what you shall drink. It's kind of saying everything that a mystical teacher would say, and that Jesus literally said, but the church doesn't teach what Jesus really said. The church teaches how they want you to hear the message. But what Jesus was saying in the Beatitudes, again, sorry to interrupt you, but my interpretation of it is he's saying God's got your back. He's saying, don't worry, not by worrying has any of you added 1 cubit of height to your stature.
Yeah,
The flowers don't add cubits of height to their stature by worrying, nor do the trees. And Jesus's message, as I interpret it in the Beatitudes, is to say, stop thinking that you're any different than a tree or a flower.
yeah, yeah. There's this other teaching where Jesus talks about like blessed are the meek, and blessed are the peacemakers, blessed for they shall inherit the earth. Like, I'm getting it totally wrong, but blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of the earth. And it's kind of this like admonition, not an admonition, but a call for humility. And I was thinking about that in relation to power, and how, and I think that you're right. Like when you grab onto your sonship, there is you're not necessarily reaching for power anymore. And though it sounds like that sounds like we are advocating, or we'd be advocating that you are, but there's kind of two definitions of power there.
Yeah,
And
yes.
one of them is I have to do this in a very heavy-handed, ham-fisted, awkward kind of way, where I force people around and push and manipulate to try to get my way. And the other is things are good. It's all good, and I'm good as long as I act in love and peace. And yeah, that's always an interesting valley for me to walk through or think about or be around. even, yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And something, it reminds me of something that Melchizedek says in the Paul Selig books, which is that they were teaching, I forget exactly the message, but basically the message was kind of being communicated that you acquiesce to truth, that you kind of, that truth is greater than you, and that you kind of have to allow the truth to work through you. And Paul interrupted the teaching to say, isn't that acquiescing our authority, which is what all of these books so far have told us not to do. And then the guides say, well, you must be in acquiescence to something because you don't actually, they didn't say this, but I'm going to add that because you don't actually exist. But they say you must be in acquiescence to something as a created being. So we suggest being in acquiescence to your divine authority or your source. They're kind of teaching that you're basically a choice maker. This is my interpretation. I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but you're a choice maker of all of these vibrations that are shown to you on a screen, from the very highest to the very lowest. We'll use the shape of the triangle, but screen is a rectangle, same thing, whatever. You're being shown all of these vibrations in color because our spectrum of light in the eye, which is not a coincidence because it's the spectrum of light that we're working with energetically, works red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Wherever you're interacting with that spectrum is where you're going to manifest your reality from. And what they're saying is you can acquiesce to the lower colors on the spectrum by acquiescing to what people in form are telling you, or you can acquiesce to the highest point of the spectrum, which is what you are telling yourself, but you just forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, you can acquiesce to it.
Does that answer what you were kind of getting at?
Yep, it does.
Because we can kind of be mistaken, and I was kind of mistaken when I first worked with these things, that you don't really even, or I didn't really even realize what the personality self was until I got it to quiet down a little bit. I won't say by any stretch of the imagination that it's gone, but I'm slowly coming to realize that it's not the only thing present with me, and that I can, in the form of when I say like my guides tell me this, my guides tell me that, it's a continual practice that I'm just beginning to really bloom into, is the idea that the interruptions that Paul has in the teachings, let's say, are the version of a person that he was taught to be. And Melchizedek that would speak through him is the higher teaching that is available that he consciously throughout his day filters out. And we can choose in any moment which part of that process we would like to stop filtering. And the personality doesn't really like the higher stuff because it's not perceived as safe, because it's happening somewhere else. You have to trust that spirit has something for you before it's in form, which is the real essence of what we're talking about here. But the real meat and potatoes of the thing is that spirit manifests in form after it has coalesced in the world of spirit. And you kind of have to trust that any idea or notion that you have, that you consistently focus on, that focus is like watering a seed in the garden of your mind, and that experiencing things in form is experiencing their bloom.
Yeah. If you, yeah, anything, I don't know. Just think about outside. I think about outside, like go outside. Like if you walk outside, you're seeing everything in bloom, and you're seeing all the peace in bloom, all the love in bloom, and you're seeing the light in bloom as it like filters down to the trees and the shadows in it. And that is like directly tied to the reality of your inner self. And
it is your inner self. It is your reality.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's what's coming from within you as you're watching it all.
Yeah.
Being it all. And
Duncan
yeah, so like what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. I'm tired of hearing my own voice at this point.
It's like, what part am I gonna water? You know, like what part of my day-to-day existence am I gonna water? as I walk through my moments.
Yeah. What part of my existence am I going to water as I walk through these moments? As I walk through this moment, what part of my life or what seed am I going to water as I walk through this moment? And your focus and your attention is your watering bucket. When the seed is something that actually did not come from the personality structure, but the seed of an idea came from the divine. And you can choose consciously to withhold the water from that seed in favor of the seed somebody else planted for you.
Yep.
And having faith as small as a mustard seed is a little bit ironic here, because everything really is a seed. And you think about how a tree grows. A tree is obviously a seed before it's a giant tree. And in that book that I was reading, Each Moment is the Universe by Dainin Katagiri, he teaches that every moment can be described as arising only from the infinite wellspring of creation, or something very similar to that phraseology. Each moment is just arising or arising only. And I think about why do trees grow? You think about all the elements. There's a seed, there's fertile soil, there's sunlight, and there's water. And if a human was not involved in that, that's something that just happened, that just arose, and all of the conditions were met, and that means there's a tree. Life is just something that wants to happen, and when the conditions are met for it to happen, it happens. And the reason that it wants to happen is because it actually is happening in the higher part of the pyramid, and the conditions get met as it filters downward into density. Like, it's not an accident that there's a tree outside. That tree is having a vibrational experience that it agrees to at a higher level that manifests as a tree.
Yeah, and I think one of the things unique to our human experience is that maybe the tree just does it, but as humans and creatures, we make memories and thoughts about that, so it's makes it more, I guess it creates suffering kind of in a way, creates our experience. So my phone is about out of batteries.
All right,
So
I was planning on, yeah. I mean, this whole thing, when we got back, we were supposed to be wrapping it up, but I just got caught up in talking
that's
to you
okay.
again.
It's fine. It's really great. And it's really wonderful talking to you, as always. I always enjoy our conversations. So thank you for sharing all your thoughts with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for joining me here. And thank you for being you. Thank you for engaging with me in a way that's been helpful for both of us and both of our highest growth. And I hope that we can both take a piece of this and integrate it with our daily lives, and anybody listening to this. Thank you very much, Ben.
For sure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.